Hello, and how are you doing? I hope this summer comes in good news very soon to ourselves in Canada and everywhere in the world. My name is Jamal Al Sharif, and this is the political show on Canar TV, the Arab voice from Canada. As we know, the federal election in Canada most probably coming soon. All the speculations say that the Prime Minister Justin Trudeau will go tomorrow, Sunday, to the Governor General to ask her to dissolve the Parliament and call the election. There are many calls and many speculations say that the election will be around September 20th, which means that will be a very, very short period for our candidates to prepare themselves and knock all the doors in their ridings. So we have this on ourselves in Canar TV to bring as much candidate as we can to introduce them to the community and to know more about them. Today, our second show, and today we have a very nice and gentle, nice lady, who we don't call gentle, Madame Bيسان الزعبي. أهلا وسهلا, welcome.
Hi, marhaba. Thank you for having me today.
Bيسان, it's a very nice name. So we are very proud that Bيسان is from the Arabic communities. She's running in Kitchener Center for the NDP. A very high voice, especially we've heard the NDP is doing great job during the pandemic, trying to push for a lot of reforms. So Bيسان, first questions as usual, who is Bيسان?
Hi, marhaba. Thank you again for having me. My name is Bيسان Zarbi, Bيسان Zubi, if you're speaking English. And I am, as you mentioned, the NDP candidate here in Kitchener Center. But before that, I am an equity trainer. So I work with local startups and nonprofits to help them become more socially responsible and work on, sustainability, diversity and inclusion, equity. But I work with boards of governors generally. That's what I do for work. Before that, I worked on Parliament Hill, actually, when I was young, when I was 25, 26, 27. And so it's interesting, the idea of coming back in this way, for sure. I'm excited on that. I'm also a Palestinian Canadian. My parents live in Ottawa, Canada. My older brother lives there as well with his wife and his sister and my nephew, who is 3. And I am, I'm a community, I'm very engaged in the community. I volunteer. I am an activist, and I try and get different types of municipal changes done. So I've been a housing advocate for a while here, especially when it comes to affordable housing and homelessness and poverty. So I've been very busy, but I'm very, very excited. And I think, we're having, as you said, the likelihood is that there will be an election called tomorrow. So I think that I'm just, one person in this community that's also really, I don't necessarily think it's the right time to be having people going into an election. I know that I'm making sure that people from my team are double vaccinated and making sure that they're, taking every single safety precaution. But also, we have had a really, really tough couple years, and I think we have an opportunity to demand better from our government and to really say what we think a better future looks like, and to have our leaders be accountable to us. Because for the last couple of years, I think we've been very, we've been very patient. We've all been kind of coming together to try and make the best of a really difficult situation, right? But as we rebuild and as we regrow, we can start demanding, directions and visions for the future beyond this.
Before we jump to the community, to the politics, I want to know more about your involvement in the community. As you said,
for sure.
Poverty, housing, many non-for-profits involvement with them. So what did you do for the community before you start to be a candidate for the next federal election?
Yeah, for sure. So I moved to Waterloo Region for work, like a lot of young people, over I think maybe 6 years ago, and I worked at CG, which is the Center for International Governance Innovation. And so that is on, on Herb Street in Waterloo, but a very prestigious research institution. And that's where I started learning more about the community and really started going to community events and making my friends. But when I started working at Communitech, which is the local incubator, the tech startup incubator here in Kitchener Center, like just a couple blocks away from my house and my campaign office now, that really shaped the way that I worked with the community, because my job at Communitech was I actually connected the tech community with nonprofits, with philanthropic opportunities, with volunteering in the community. And I helped the tech companies, startups in the incubation space, but also very large companies engage with the local community better. So that introduced me to a lot of local charities and nonprofits that I still work with. So, Reception House, who greet government assisted refugees and help place them and settle them in the region. I work with the KW Multicultural Center. I'm an English language tutor there with a Syrian refugee who her and her family came and settled here. So my Arabic helped me teach her kind of more of the English grammar and conversational English fundamentals. I was nominated for the KW, the Chamber of Commerce's Young Professional of the Year award a couple of years ago. That was a nice honor, and also the Arab Women of Waterloo Region Award too. So there are a lot of different kinds of community groups, but everything has always been very much about just meeting people where they are and finding issues and causes that matter to them and matter to me, and working together on them.
Sounds good. So why did you join the NDP party? Why this particular party? Why not other ones?
Well, I started actually working for the NDP. It was my first job after I graduated from undergrad. Yeah, so I started working for the NDP when I was 25, when I graduated from Concordia. And so it's always been the NDP for me. I'm a progressive person. I believe in the state and like our system protecting people and lifting up the vulnerable. And so I don't believe that the things that we hear about like trickle down economics and us and people benefiting from just corporations. I don't believe in that. And so I really think that it's always been the party for me in that kind of sense. And I think that right now, just with where we are and the questions that we're asking, for me, healthcare is a really, really big issue. We need to invest in our healthcare, affordable housing too. Like these are my core issues, and the NDP is the party for those issues. So that's, it's a natural fit for me. Yeah.
Beysan, if you're winning and you will be the representative as a member of parliament for Kitchener Center.
Yeah.
What do you think you can do as a member of parliament for this area?
I mean, a lot of things, right? I think, but for me, the point is, and why I'm running with the NDP and why I think this moment is so important, is what we can do with people across the country who want these changes, right? I mean, me as one solo person, one person alone, I don't know what I can do. I don't think it's about me. I think it's about a vision for the future that is collective and that really is voices across the country. And so I'm excited that the NDP has candidates that are, Indigenous activists, that are, small business owners, that are immigrants and refugees. Like they have all these experiences that are so missing from policy, from building good policy, from knowing how it impacts people and knowing how government can actually, change people's lives for the better. This is the lived experience, right? And so I think that that's really where politics becomes interesting and powerful and can change things. So I think that as a younger person, I have a lot of kind of experience with things like, like when I'm like, so I was renovicted, for example, from my apartment in January. I was living in the same apartment for a very long time. and then it was sold. The new owners want to make a profit on the building. And so everybody who lived there, all 7, different apartments, we were all evicted. And so we were evicted from our affordable homes so that somebody who bought it and would put money into it, would make the homes cost probably twice as much on the market after. And so that represents the loss of affordable housing. It says that people who are in the community are then displaced, and where are they going, and where can they afford to be. I was lucky enough to find another apartment, but many people have not been lucky. Many people have had to leave our area, right? And so having experienced that, I think, is very valuable for somebody who's actually writing policy on housing. And if you have always just lived in the same place and been secure and always, never wondered or never worried about that, you're missing experience that many Canadians have. Like, that is a very important experience that you would be bringing to the table, but we look down on those experiences. Yep. So I think that time for that is over. You know what I mean? Like, we can do much better now. So I think that there's people like me, there's young people everywhere. There's people with experiences, there's, racialized people, poor people, people who have, different ways of thinking about things. That's how we'll get things to change in Ottawa, just not having the same one mindset that we have right now, which is the real problem.
As we know, this is one of the hardest elections. It comes after the pandemic and during the pandemic. So nobody's actually liking that it's coming within very short time, as we've heard that it's around 20th of September. It's very short campaign period. All the restriction, mask, you can't talk to people close.
We're being very safe.
How challenging this?
It's pretty challenging, but you know what? Like, we're a young campaign anyway, so this is our first campaign, so it's kind of like we're learning how to do this from the get-go anyway, so it's a part of what we're learning. And so it's not necessarily, I don't think, more challenging than running for the first time, so we're doing that, and we're just adding this too. This is our new reality. We don't really have an option, so we're just going to do the best we can. So we have rapid screening tests that we got from the Chamber of Commerce for canvassers. We're asking that everybody who is canvassing be double vaccinated. So just make sure you're taking every precaution before you're knocking on people's doors. We have, our sanitation station before you walk into our office. We have rules on, who's there. We're contact tracing, all of that. It's a lot. It's a lot, and it's not necessarily. I don't think this is a great time to be having an election. I don't think it's safe. I know that the numbers are rising, and I think that we need to just do what we have to do. I don't want anybody getting sick on my behalf. I want to keep everybody healthy, everybody safe. And so I'm hoping the other parties are going to be doing that too, because there's going to be a lot of people out knocking doors. Like, we're just one kind of group. There's, 4 or 5 parties in the race here. So, so we have to be careful, and we're very vigilant. We're going to be vigilant, but it's definitely a concern for us. Yes.
It's a concern and challenge. Yes. I think it's never been like this, and I hope it will be the last time we go through this together.
Yes, me too. I really hope. Yeah.
So tell me about Kitchener Centre. You're running in general. How many? What is the population? It's around 100,000.
Yeah, it's 102. Kitchener Centre is a wonderful riding. It's really diverse. It's got a lot of different communities, but a lot of different types of neighborhoods. It has very dense kind of urban neighborhoods. It has, just beautiful, we have the Grand River that is one side of our riding, and it's just a beautiful trails and nature. So it's a really lovely riding like that, but it's quite small geographically. It's like a very small urban area. It's changing. It's changed a lot. in the last couple years. If you look at housing, if you look at new developments, we are like every new building being built in downtown Kitchener is now taller than the last one. And we're looking at like 30, 40-story buildings in a city that never had anything higher than like 12. So it's definitely changing very rapidly. And I think there's a lot of concern about how it's changing and what we're going to change into and how we can change into something better and not, you know, worse in that in that something is more exclusive or, you know, people can't live here. They can't afford to live here. Like, we don't want it to turn into that. So Kitchener Centre is also very young. It's a very young riding. The majority of the riding is under the age of 40. And so a lot of us are workers, you know, young professionals, whether we work for ourselves or others or tech companies or in services or as creatives. There's a lot of young people too, and a lot of young families. Yeah.
So, do you know the percentage of the Arab and Muslim in your riding around the proximate?
I believe it's around like I don't know what the percentage is, but I believe there are about 5,000 Arab-speaking people or Arabic-speaking people in the riding. And I'm not sure about the Muslim population, but it is also, I would say, probably much higher than that because there's a much larger kind of Muslim community. So I think it's something around 3 or 4%, but I would have to check. But it is quite significant. We have the Kitchener Mosque. There are like you know, we have there's a Gurudwara, and there's a very diverse kind of community that goes all the way like through Kitchener and Waterloo region, and so it's changing too. It used to be quite, you know, homogenous, but especially Syrian refugees have come. I think 3,000, 3,500 all throughout the region. So that's not just in Kitchener Centre; it's also Kitchener, Conestoga, and South Hespeler. But a lot of like there's a sort of wonderful Syrian community here, and many of them were joining family that were already here. So it's only growing. So yeah, we have a very
Beysan, you've been knocking doors for several weeks so far,
since
and
July.
you've talked to people in your riding. What is the feedback you're getting from them? What do you hear? What's their concern?
Yeah. People want things to get better. They want things to change. Like even some people were working the entire time through the pandemic and from not just from home, like going into work every single day. And a lot of those people said that they felt ignored because they, you know, weren't able to just pull themselves out of harm. And so, you know, just dealing with that and kind of dealing with the trauma of the last couple of years, I think is going to be really big. We had, you know, a hotspot in our riding. We have both, you know, around the hospital and then as well in the south of the riding where racialized workers, you know, who often work in the factories that again didn't close, you know, were there. And I hear a lot of young people who want to stay here and whose jobs are here, but they just don't think they can afford it. You know, they're wondering, like their rent is going up. They want to buy a house, but the price of housing in Kitchener went up $200,000. The average price of a house in Kitchener went up $200,000 in the last year, one year. And that has just completely kicked a whole segment of the population out of the housing market.
The biggest segment, I would say.
And it's also, I think, doing something to young people psychologically, if I'm being honest, because our parents and older generations had at least these things that they could strive for. You know what I mean? These kinds of benchmarks and goals that that they were told that if you do, you know, you go to work, you do your job, you can have these things, right? It's a house and a family and like a pension and a retirement. And those things are not a reality for people my age. I am 100% aware that the CPP is not going to last for my retirement. It's not going to exist, but I have been paying into the CPP since I was 24. But I'm well aware that it's not for me that I'm paying into. And so I think that I hear a lot of that. I hear a lot of just people want a new direction. People want things to change and not just like in incremental and really small and kind of surface ways, but they want us to kind of rethink the way that we do things, the way that we treat people and treat our lives. Yeah.
I was reading statistics before preparing for the show, And I've seen that in Kitchener now, you need to be earning around 100,000 K a year to be able to buy a house, which is like
which is over twice the national like median
average.
average. Like it's completely unattainable. And we do have, you know, and we also have people coming in from Toronto now who during the pandemic hadn't really needed to be living in Toronto and realized that their rent is so much more expensive if that's all they're kind of getting in a downtown Toronto unit. And so that's also inflated the housing prices here. It's people coming from other cities, but it's also pushing people from these cities away. And so we need to find a way of just making a city and have enough space for everybody. And there is, right? We like everybody deserves a home. Everybody should have a home. We can do that. We can give a home. We can have a home for everyone. Completely attainable. We don't because people don't care enough, you know, like if we wanted it to be a priority that everybody in Canada was housed, it would cost less than what we, you know, spend on prisons and the military easily, you know what I mean? It would, but we don't. So what's that to tell me, you know?
Yeah. Buying, I think, one of these jet fighter could educate our youth for years. Yeah. So that is a challenge.
And it's priorities, right? What are our priorities?
You're running for the NDP, and the NDP became more popular recently because of their platforms. So people talking about the NDPs, the leader, why the NDPs are getting closer to the youth, to the workers. Tell us more about the NDPs and about their platforms, please.
So the New Democratic Party actually was founded through a deal between the CCF, which was a socialist party from the prairies, and labor, and so workers helped found and create the NDP. So that created the foundation of care of realizing that a lot of the work that's done in our, you know, in our society is from people who are ignored and who, you know, if we look at Amazon, for example, and we see how, you know, those Amazon workers worked throughout the pandemic. They were going into an unsafe, like a war zone every single day. And they, you know, we didn't get any kind of clarity from them and that kind of stuff. And so when I think about that to me is the point of the NDP, but the point of unions and the point of protecting people, vulnerable people, from being used and from being exploited, you know? And so that is the NDP to me. And so that's kind of the roots. If you look at what the NDP has accomplished, they have, you know, they're the reason why we have healthcare in Canada. And I think that we are going to keep being the ones pushing for these, you know, progressive policies. So right now in our platform, and it's been in our platform for a very long time, and the Liberals promised it in 2015 and then broke that promise, but pharmacare, like there's no reason why people should be paying an arm and a leg for their prescriptions. Some prescriptions are up to $1,000 a month, like higher than that, for people who are very, very sick. And it's just, we're supposed to have this healthcare. We have taken it into, like our self-identity that we have healthcare. And yet it's not complete. It doesn't help poor people, like, you know, women pay for out of pocket for so many different kinds of healthcare expenses. So pharmacare is a huge one, but like mental health, the mental health of our country has been just plummeting, especially in the last couple of years, but it was already in a really, really bad state. We don't cover mental health services. We don't have a mental health strategy. If you go to the doctor, you have to pay, you have to wait. There is, you know, we don't have that same kind of level of care. And so we need to really firm up our kind of healthcare system, especially as my parents are turning 70 this year. I know a lot of other millennials, our parents are getting old, and they're the boomer generation, and they're a very large generation of people. When you have an aging population, you have more healthcare demands automatically. So, you know, long-term care, healthcare, aging care, all of that stuff is so, so important to start investing in right now before we're at that critical high, like, you know what I mean, that critical mass level where, you know, it's a lot of old people, and we don't have the infrastructure, we don't have the like ability for people to stay in their homes and get medical treatment in their homes. That's when we're in a real crisis, and that's maybe 10 years away if we don't start investing right now in healthcare in Canada.
I know that there was a report by the Commonwealth Fund that Canada healthcare system ranked second last among 11 countries, just one before the United States, which
You
is...
know, and like we do have a very, you know, we have an accessible general care system. It's great that, you know, if something emergent happens to you, you can get care.
At least, yeah.
But it's a start. Like we just can't settle for it. We have
We
to
need
keep
to build
pushing,
it.
and we need to be better. And so the federal government sets the way our country does health transfers. That's coming from the top. So everybody who says, well, the province, well, the province receives billions of dollars from the federal government. So very much it is the federal government that can say, this is what we need. This is what, you know, these are our priorities. This is what this money is for, and have those kinds of results happen at the provincial level. They just need to make that money available.
I know the NDP also fighting for the dental and vision care.
Dental, yes, exactly. Like we need to be thinking about, you know, dental care has extreme implications to our health. It has implications to our ability to earn money. If you're missing a tooth, like it's very hard for you to get a job at a restaurant as a server and that kind of stuff, where it's vision and appearance and that kind of, you know, those types of things are very class oriented. And so if you can't, you know, fix those things, it actually holds you back in life as well. And so so these are really, you know, it's your head, you know what I mean? Like, I don't understand, like your brain, it's your teeth, they're your eyes, they're right inside of your head. Of course, this is healthcare. Of course, this is fundamental. I get asked a lot, well, how will we pay for it? You know, how are you going to pay for it? Again, we talked about the priorities, though. We talked about how, you know, we're spending $17 billion on fighter jets, and then that's going to cost a lot more over their lifetime than just that. And for what? Like, for NATO obligations, I think that we need to think about how are we creating an intelligent, you know, healthy and resilient economy in Canada, but not, you know, not just doing things for the sake of them. And I think that we are not a fighter jet country, you know.
University education, became college, university, it's became a headache and a burden on a lot of youth, especially after graduation. A lot of debt. I've heard like people paying the debt for 10, 15 years of their life. And now buying a house became a science fiction, not a dream.
It's affordability. Well, it's like for young people, how are they going to, you know, what are they going to reach towards, right?
So are the NDBs trying to do something with the education?
Yeah. So we have, I mean, I think that there's always more to do. And I'll say that about literally every issue. But for tuition, what we've done is debt relief. So up to $25,000 of tuition debt will be forgiven. And that will change a lot of people's lives. But it's not everything. You know, we also need to be making sure that we're helping, you know, people get into school too. And so what are we doing for making sure that, you know, underadvantaged people, like that tuition is not that barrier for grants and like a national grant system. But really for me, I think, and this isn't necessarily where our platform is right now, but I think that if we are putting education, post-secondary education, as a necessary thing for people to do to be able to succeed in the world and in the economy, it should also be accessible. So it's very expensive, and that's not like, okay, so whether it is free, whether we have completely subsidized, we need to really be reimagining this education for profit model, because it shouldn't be about a profit. It should be about preparing people to make the world better and like use their skills effectively in our economy. And so we want that. We benefit the more people who are doing that, and the more kind of talented, you know, productive people we are actually pulling in to, to creating and making things better, the better for everybody.
Great. Beysan, if we see you as an MP tomorrow, well, I mean, when it comes, what will be your priority? As we know, every MP has to introduce a bill, or he can introduce a bill. What did you start thinking about this? What bill you think you can introduce to the
I should be
Parliament?
honest, I haven't thought about that, but there was something that I have kind of thought, is that when I was younger and I worked on Parliament Hill, it was a very unhealthy environment for young women. I was a young woman, I was 25. I was sexually harassed by members of Parliament. Like, it was not a safe environment for women. And a big thing for me going back is making it safe for women and fighting for it being, Parliament Hill being a place for racialized women, young women, older women, but also not just women, but people who are vulnerable, who are excluded from places, right? Being Palestinian was also really rough on Parliament Hill. It was not fun. I was told, hide yourself, hide that part of you. And so I don't think they would have said that to somebody who maybe had a bit more stature. I think they would have just kind of, not, I don't know, maybe. All that to say is that it just wasn't a safe space. And I know that for a lot of other women, it also wasn't a safe space for them. So I think that, if I am being honest, I think I might try and do some kind of legislation about like an an actual anti-harassment and gender equity policy for Parliament Hill. For legislators on Parliament Hill,
which is important. We've seen an woman MP in last election, and she resigned because she was harassed, and she's indigenous.
And a lot of women in politics have a lot of harassment, and right, we're getting it from everywhere, from social media, from people. But I don't think we should be taking it in the workspace of Parliament Hill. Like, Canadian citizens are paying members of Parliament like a lot of money to do a specific job. And when I was young, I go on the Hill and I see these very powerful people abusing their power. I see them not working. It's their staff that are underpaid who are doing all the work. And it's these people who are then coming in and taking the credit and having the photo taken. And you see all that when you're young, and it kind of shapes you into thinking, well, first of all, I would not do that. Like, I would do it better. But second of all, like, this is not a system that people would want to get into. You know what I mean? Like, we have to just change the system. And I think that really electing people across Canada that are different, that have been in different positions and have known what it's like to not have power, to you know what I mean, to be powerless. I think that is who we really need to be thinking about bringing into these conversations, bringing into, creating legislation, creating new policies, because right now it's the same people who are in power thinking about how power works. And it's just, the cycle continues, and it's the status quo, and nothing ever changes because power doesn't want to give up power. So we need to just, we have a democracy. This is when we use it. We use it to change this. We use it to vote and to, change it.
And that's what we encourage people to use their power, because as I always say, people power is stronger than people in power. Yeah. So if we go and vote for the right person and put the right people in the right place, we will see a prosperous Canada, because that's what we need, especially during this hard time. After this COVID, it's very hard for any government. So, Beysan, maybe you spoke or you touched on Palestine. This is one of the most important subjects, I would say, to many Arab in the community in Canada, Canadian Arabs. And for you, as originally from Palestine, where you are standing on this issue, what do you think you can do for to resolve this problem as a Canadian politician, for sure?
So again, one person, I want to be a part of a movement of a collective action for peace. I think that peace will come from the generation. I don't think it'll come from the governments. I don't think it'll come from the Israeli or Palestinian governments, if I'm being honest, it will come from people. And so I would like to be part of the people who are, pushing for a peaceful solution for everybody. My family all lives mostly in Israel proper, within those borders. And then I have some family in Ramallah in the West Bank. And I visited and I've visited back home, but I was born in Toronto, and so I'm Canadian, and I have that kind of duality as well. And I think that being able to kind of share that Palestinian experience from a Canadian perspective is something that hasn't necessarily been seen in Canadian politics. So I'm excited to be able to be the one to do that. Currently, I'm the only Palestinian running in all of Canada. So it's a lot of pressure, because I want to make sure that I keep pushing for this, because it's who I am and it's my identity, and it's so many people's identity, and it's so important to so many of us. So I'm not like shying away from talking about being Palestinian. I just think that the peaceful solution has to come from so many people, and it has to be collective, and it has to be solidarity among different causes as well, beyond just Israelis and Palestinians as well, like speaking to indigenous communities in Canada. Like settler colonialism is at the root of so many different kinds of horrors and traumas around the world. So we have to have an honest conversation about what that means, right? Like why we support some governments and not others, and why some governments get away with, really horrible crimes, and we kind of call them something else, and we look at them a different way because of, imperialism, colonialism. Like we recognize them more than we recognize, other nations. And so I think it's all related. I do equity training, and so I really do try and think about how these issues do work together, how they intersect. Because from a policy level, I think it's really important to look at like the different implications of the policy. So foreign policy, for example, like members of parliament, I'm very interested in Canada's foreign policy right now. We have a terrible foreign policy right now. It is disgusting. And like, we don't talk about it enough. Like, we don't talk about our support for Saudi. Like, we don't talk about the really dirty, ugly things that Canada does.
We became enemy to everybody.
Everybody in just a short period of time. And like, we try, I think I grew up, 90s, early 2000s, where you would have that Canada patch and you would put it on your backpack, and you would want to go all around the world and show people that you're from Canada, and they would say, "Hey, Canada," that we had that review. That is not the case, right? Like, and it's we don't have that anymore. We have lost, and Stephen Harper started it. I will give him full credit for his work. He is the reason why that reputation tanked, but Trudeau hasn't repaired it. Trudeau hasn't gone around the world and actually made Canada into an ally, into a supporter. He's made it about, himself and us, and about what we can do. Canada is back, but where are we? Because we haven't really been showing up, and we are looking the other way on a lot of things. So we need to work on our foreign policy.
My next very important question is Islamophobia. After the Quebec attack, London attack, several attacks on hijabi women in Canada, Islamophobia became real in Canada.
Yeah.
So where are you standing on this?
So Islamophobia. My father's Muslim, my mother's Christian. They were not allowed to marry. Both their families forbade it, and they kind of moved here. And so I grew up within the context of also being within those two kinds of worlds. And even just seeing how that has played out with my father's experience of life, the way that he is treated, the way that, Arab men, Muslim men are profiled, and terrorism has affected them specifically. Like that my brother and my father are hesitant to travel and don't want to connect, through different kinds of places. And all of that, I think, is related to the ability to villainize just Muslim people and Arab people, and having that. Obviously September 11th was just a huge moment in that, because I was 15 I think, 14, 15. And I remember I had my first, racist incident right after that, and it was really, really hurtful and traumatic. I remember how, people were saying, don't say, who you are. I know that my hijabi friends were very, very scared. One of them had her hijab yanked down on the bus. So to me, Islamophobia is not new. It's been happening and it's been growing really, really hard since I think that to me is the catalyst, September 11th, and the way that the US and the way that Canada and the Western media allowed it to be, Muslim terrorists, this kind of line. So that framed, I think, a lot of, what I experienced after that. So I went to Montreal, and that's when I also was in Montreal at the same time as their reasonable accommodation kind of I guess they were not trials, but they were like commissions. And then that was talking about what is reasonable to accommodate when it comes to religious religious kind of imagery. But we know how that ended up with the public service hijab ban in Quebec. And so these are all related and they all grow. And what we really need to understand is that Islamophobia isn't just cultural, it's institutional here in Canada. We see our institutions passing it on through their work on, CSIS with anti-terrorism and if you look into the Mar and Omar Kader, we have had very Islamophobic policy coming from the top in our government. I was on Parliament Hill when they first introduced the barbaric cultural practices bill, and the Liberals voted for it. The Liberals who are there today voted for it, and so. It's been a long time, and when people are talking about what happened in London, or even when people are talking about what happened in Quebec City, we knew that we had a hateful culture, and the fact that people still haven't woken up, and that we still haven't really changed the way that we talk about the Middle East, the way we talk about Arabs, the way we talk about Muslims, the way that we keep using the word terrorism like it's a knee-jerk. Violence equals terrorism, and that doesn't help Muslim people. That doesn't help Arab people by normalizing the usage of the word that was held against us and used against us. It's not a good thing for white people to be called terrorists too, because it just means that the next time a Muslim person, an Arab person is called a terrorist, we're going to be more familiar and we're going to know that guy was. So we're going to go harder at the Muslim guy. I want us to break away from using the traps that we have had put on us. So for Islamophobia, we have to think about anti-Arab racism and how it kind of impacts all those levels. But then we need to think about anti-Black racism, and we have to think about how that compounds with Islamophobia. And you know what I mean? And that's a whole other experiencing of it. And so it's racism, it's oppression, it's all connected. We can't pick and choose, and we can't just, only talk about one. We have to stop all of them. All of them.
Yeah, I agree
That's the only solution. We can't just look at Islamophobia and pretend if we only work on Islamophobia that it'll help, because they're all
the Black, the Jewish, the Indigenous, everywhere.
Anti-Indigenous racism and like Palestinians, we have that solidarity with Canadian, with Indigenous people in Canada, because we have that kind of a settler Indigenous understanding. But that's solidarity, and that's a good thing. It's not just about us, that's all over the world, right? And so when we find that, I think that's when we can really start talking about the ways that we're held back and the ways that we're oppressed,
Yeah. Beysan, you're wearing today an orange shirt. Is it because the NDP or the Indigenous? I would like to ask you what
I will be honest, this is an NDP dress. We had to, so for our volunteer t-shirts, we ordered them back in July, and we knew that there were orange t-shirts and they meant something, to the Indigenous populations. And so what we did was we ordered white t-shirts and then we tie-dyed them like different colors.
Oh, that's good. Yeah,
so
that's my question.
well, we
Where are you
wanted to.
standing on the indigenous rights?
Well, it means something, and it means something specific. And we kept seeing all of these orange T-shirts all over, the city, and we liked it. And we didn't want people in their head thinking, is that Indigenous or is that Bisan's campaign? Like, I don't want people wondering. I want them to know it's support for Indigenous children. It's support for reconciliation and truth and justice. So when we wear our shirts, nobody's making that mistake. Nobody's thinking it's the same thing. They look very different.
So where do you stand on the indigenous rights? As we know that every government trying to make reconciliation. However, my point of view, how you can make a reconciliation with people that you don't know, you don't understand, you never been with, you never talked to. So where do you stand on this indigenous rights, and what do you think the NDP can do to really go to the reconciliation and truth?
Well, so I think the first, the commission was truth and reconciliation. And I don't think we've even really handled the truth part yet, right? So I think that there really needs to be a reckoning of the truth of what happened, of, of those lives that were lost, of the culture that was suppressed, who did what. That stuff is very, very important. Nice to meet you, Haifa. That stuff is very important because it helps us understand where to go. Because if you don't understand what has happened, if you don't understand, the past actions, there is no reconciliation. So that is not a start. And that's why we don't have reconciliation, because we still haven't come to the truth part, right? The fact that when we started discovering, dead bodies on schools, and people were shocked and dismayed when this was published explicitly in the Truth and Reconciliation Report 3 years ago, shows that it just didn't really, capture people when it happened. So I think that the truth part is very, very important. And then I think that once we have acknowledged more truths, understood more truths, then we can actually start to understand and listen. And then that has to be the next step for moving forward, because then we have to understand what they need and how that works. And so one thing that we are hearing a lot is land back, and that is a very, very reasonable request in my eyes. We have promised land especially in Kitchener Center, and that we took back. There are so many different documents that show how that history has gone, and we as a government, we don't even negotiate with those land deed owners as we call, you know what I mean? And so I think that we have to be harder on ourselves, if I'm being honest. I think we're being too easy on ourselves. I think we kind of allow those things happen in the past, we can move forward. No, until we understand the past, until we have accounted for the past, we can't move forward.
Then
there's no moving forward.
Beysan, you are running a hard campaign. As we know, every campaigner, every politician who trying to get into the parliament need help. So Can you tell us what help you need from the community to be able to become an MP and deliver the help to the community later? So first we need to help you, then we will expect you to help us later. So
exactly, it's reciprocal.
How people can help you in your riding or in Kitchener in general?
There's a lot of different ways to help. Right now, we are just getting ready to campaign. So that means every single day we will be out knocking on doors and making phone calls. So you can come, if you're in Kitchener, and come knock on doors with me and with our team, or you can make phone calls even from home. We have a call-in system that you can just do from a computer, or even from your cell phone or your landline if you want to. And we do those calls every day, every evening, to do outreach. And so you can ask if you speak Arabic, you can ask to speak to, we do Arabic language once a week, of just Arabic kind of speakers reaching out to people in the local Arabic community as well. So we've tried to make it as accessible as possible to get involved in that way. And there's also fundraising. It's a really difficult part of a campaign because I hate asking for money, but we have to buy lawn signs and election signs, and they cost so much money. So, even donating 10, 20, however much that you can afford is really, really helpful, because it helps us compete with very established campaigns that ran just a couple years ago. We didn't, we're new, so we have to buy everything from scratch. And so they have their signs from last time. We need to buy new signs.
And
but
just
then
to remind everybody that the Canadian system is up to $400. They give you 75% back when you file your tax. So basically, if you donate $400 to Beysan today, you will get $300 back. So it's actually.
I went for the 20. You went for the 400, but it's the case up to 400. Yeah, it's 75% back. So there's an extremely generous. This is why they want you to donate. They want to encourage it. So basically, if you donate before the election on this campaign, you'll get a tax receipt in early 2022 from the NDP Kitchener Centre EDA that will be for 75% of the donated amount. So then when you file your taxes, if you donated $400, you get $300 back. If you donated $100, you get $75 back. So it's a very generous system to help to encourage people to donate. So
volunteer really donation.
Yeah. And so my website is beisanzubi.ca. It's my first name, last name.ca, BEISANZUBI.ca. And there's a little donate button in the top corner, and you'll see all of that information there. And yeah, you need to be a Canadian citizen or permanent resident, but I believe many of you are. But there you go. That's my website. You'll see me with my hair down, my hair pretty, when I haven't been out in the sun, walking around and sweating all day. Yeah, that's what I look like when I'm a bit more put together. Please, so just click on either of those two buttons. That'll take you right to the donate page, and you can also get in touch, ask questions. We definitely, any kinds of resources you can help us. Some people have cars and they can help us, take people to the votes or take people to canvases and door knocking. Some people are really strong and they don't really want to talk to very many people, but they can help us put the signs and hammer the signs into the lawns. And so there's a role for everybody, every skill set, every time commitment that you can make. We really are people powered. We have a really excited team of people. Thank you. We are very young and motivated, and we got a lease for a storefront on Tuesday. We signed it on Wednesday. We painted on Thursday and Friday, and then we moved all the furniture in today. And we did it. And now we have a campaign office and we're ready for tomorrow, and so we just get things done. We're a very motivated team of people, but we have hope. Because what do we, I get asked sometimes, what do you do? Well, so what's next for you if you don't win this? And the fact of the matter is that I don't have anywhere else to go. This is the only planet we have. I can't go. I'm not, what's his name? Richard Branson. I can't go to the moon. This is the world that we have. This is the climate that we have. This is the economy that we have. I'm here we have to make it better. We have no choice. So whether it's this election, the next election, whether it's in between, whether it's through government, outside of government, that's unknown. But I think that the point is that these are all things that we need to do, that we need to, as a country, to focus on, and they're not going to change. They're only going to get more urgent.
From our listeners would like to help, wherever you are in Canada, you can come and donate online. You can call and donate by credit card. They will help you.
Yes.
If you are in Kitchener, it doesn't mean if you are in the riding or other places, you can come and volunteer to help Beysan in her campaign.
Yes.
And the most important, if you are in Kitchener Center, go and vote on the voting day. That is the key of everything.
And honestly, I even, vote for whoever you vote, but be active, ask questions, go out, learn more, because we have, as as voters a responsibility, because when we don't participate and we don't, make our voices heard, the outcomes are just worse for us. They just get worse and worse and worse. And it's not wrong. Like, I mean, it's not abnormal to feel like disenfranchised from the system. It's built to make you not want to be a part of it. Poor people, racialized people, young people vote at a much, much lower rate than the rest of the population. And it's because they don't think that the system cares about them or that their vote matters. But the reason why the system is allowed to keep ignoring them and allowed to keep ignoring their needs is because it just gets to repeat every election. Well, young people don't vote anyway.
Yep.
You know what I mean? They're not going to show up, so their issues don't matter.
Beysan,
It's time.
I would like to talk to you more for another hour.
I know. I'm sorry. I could keep going.
We are running off the time. So your last message to all Canadian, the Canadians in your riding, and to everybody listening to us.
Just thank you for the support so far. There's so many more opportunities to give support. bisanzubi.ca is where you can find all of the information and get in touch with me. But no matter where you live, now is the time. Now is the time to ask those questions and get involved. So I hope you do. And I hope that, with an election, it's a chance for us to really demand a vision for like a better future. Yeah, that's my website. Thank you so much.
So the website is on the screen and it's in the comments. So if you would like to help Beysan, just go to her website, donate today. Do not be shy. The Canadian system has a very generous giving back if you donate for a political reason. Up to 75%. That's a great number. It's like almost.
It's very. I know. When I told my friends, they're like, "Is that?" And I was like, "Yeah, I know. It sounds like it's too good to be true, but it's the way it's always been. So take advantage." So,
Beysan, at the end, I would like to thank you
Shukran.
For being brave, for giving us the hope, and to run this election as a woman, a woman from ethnic backgrounds.
Palestinian woman, you can
Palestinian,
say it.
an Arab. I'm proud of you, and I think everybody from our listeners are listening and learning a lot. So thank you again for doing whatever you're doing. We hope to see you soon in Ottawa. Congratulate you with your new office, inshallah. Just to remind everybody that we will have another episode tomorrow at 9 p.m. with the Liberal candidate Gustav Roy running from Ottawa Carleton. So be with us tomorrow at 9 p.m. Thank you again, and wish you all the best. Good night, everybody.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.